Hi, this is Walter Weesey from Yellowstone Country Fly Fishing with my weekly Montana Guide Flies fly tying video. And this one should really be called technically speaking, a Wyoming Guide Flies video because this is a soft tackle I use on the Firehole River almost exclusively. If you've ever fished the Firehole River, you'll know that there's kind of a blonde caddis that hatches basically all season. And particularly, maybe not, the second half of October, but otherwise, whenever you'd want to fish the fire hole, there's a chance of seeing these. And this is a pupa pattern for it. I fish this either on a swing with another wet fly or as a dropper underneath a dry caddis. And very simple pattern. Blue ribbon flies in West Yellowstone will sell these. They tie them with a partridge wing. I use either cream or ginger hen hackle here. And it's really the hackle that I want to show you here. I'm going to start also doing just technique videos, not patterns, but actual techniques. And I'm going to show this technique in detail with a bunch of different materials later in the week. But I wanted to tie this pattern too. And very, very simple pattern and works much better than anything you can buy kind of commercially, from a large wholesaler. Okay, so my hook in the vise here is a size 16 Montana Fly Company short shank standard wire hook. This is kind of an all-purpose hook, but it's really a wet fly hook. And I'll tie these either in 14 or 16. I think I said this one's a 16. Honestly, I tie them more often in a 14, but as much as anything, I want to show you the winging style, the hackle style on this fly with a very big feather on a size 16 hook, just to show you what's possible. And I'll tie these both on this slightly heavier wire hook, and then also on a light wire dry fly hook. And depending on what I'm doing with it, if I'm swinging it, I tend to fish the heavier wire hook. If I'm fishing it under a dry, I use the lighter wire hook just to keep it up, because I'm using essentially the same size dry as I would the pupa. And then my thread here is size 8/0 light Cahill, and you can use white or really anything that's kind of pale like this. And I've started that sort of an eye length or so behind the eye, and just stopped, didn't make a thread base, didn't do anything. Don't build up too much bulk here. Now I'm going to show you my feather I'm going to use for this fly, and it's going to, if you're used to the traditional way of tying a soft tackle where you wrap the feather, it's going to seem way, way too big. You see the length of those fibers on there. This is kind of that light ginger. This is actually off of a barnyard hen. There's no reason to buy genetic hen hackle. You can get barnyard hen skins that are 10 times the size of a genetically engineered bird from a furrier, and they work just as well. Not rooster skins, if you're tying dry flies with them, but for the hen hackle, there's no reason to buy the expensive stuff. But anyhow, you see how those feather barbs are easily 2 to 3 times longer than the hook shank, way too long for the fly, but they're not. So what I'm going to do here is take it, and I've already tied one on the other side, but I'm going to take it and then preen those fibers, and this one looks pretty good. Those are all looking kind of the same length already. But I would even out those feather fiber ends, and then grab them all by the tips like that, and I'm going to rip those free, just one fell swoop. Now you'll see here I've got on the ends of that feather, kind of the little short and curlies where they attach to the feather. I'm going to cut those off because a lot of times those will make the fibers stick together. And then what I'm left with is going to be a bundle of fibers like that. And I like to hackle fairly heavy on this fly, but you can adjust, according to what, you're tying a North Country spider or something, you want half this many fibers. And you can tie any soft hackle using this hackling technique, which, like I said, I'm going to make a video of it later in the week. And if you come in here and you find, like I just did, that some of my fibers are a little too short, I'm going to just pull those out, because I do want those more or less the same length. They don't have to be perfect. I'm going to measure those against the hook shank like that, and then tie them in just kind of right up almost behind the eye at the length I want, facing forward. And I'm going to use kind of gentle thread pressure, a distributing wrap, to spread those around the hook shank. And if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you know this is kind of how I tie soft tackles. But, the first video I did using this technique, I've probably tied 6 times as many flies with it since then as I had before I did that video. And so I'm kind of better at it now, and I wanted to show that. But I've distributed those around the hook shank like that. And if you look there, you can see those are pretty evenly distributed. And so what I'm going to do here is then tie the rest of the fly behind that hackle, and then I'll arrange the hackle how I want. So what I'm doing now is just wrapping back to the bend, or possibly a little into the bend. Then my abdomen on this fly is just going to be pearl ice stub. You do not want to use the UV ice stub. You just want regular ice stub for this. And I'm going to just kind of very roughly twist that onto the hook. You want a kind of a fuzzy, thick body on this fly. And so I just kind of loosely dubbed that. And, you know, you could use a split thread technique or something if you wanted, but there's no reason to. And then get up and then leave a little bit of a gap behind the hackle and the front of the abdomen there. And then my thorax on this fly is going to be light peacock, Arizona synthetic peacock dubbing. And this is from the original manufacturer, who was John Romer. His recipes have been bought out by Montana Fly Company, and so the material is now distributed by Montana Fly Company. But it's the same stuff. And then I'm going to wrap that thorax just behind that wing, like so. And then final step in tying this fly, I'm going to kind of spread all of those feather fibers away from the eye like that, and then grab them all, pull them back, bring my thread in front, and just make a thread dam right in front. And you see how those have already stood up like that. And I'm going to come in with my whip finisher, and then use the whip finish to continue building that thread dam. And I'll often do 2 whip finishes on this fly just to be sure. You notice how I'm building a very small head actually with this this material. You know, it's unlike having to wrap down over a feather stem. All I was basically doing was wrapping over a few feather fibers and then bare hook shank there. And so this actually makes for a very delicate, you know, small head on a soft hackle, which is usually what you want. But there you have it. That is my Firehole White Miller Caddis Pupa, you know, White Miller soft hackle. And I'm going to brush that out a little bit. Honestly, you don't really have to. That just makes it kind of look cooler. And very good pattern, but more importantly, you know, again, this is the size hackle I used for that fly. You can tie with any size hackle, any size fly, and you can also use things like midge crystal flash or squirrel guard hair or hare's mask. You can tie your soft hackles, or some of those materials like hare's ear would be more of a stiff hackle. But you can tie those with any size material if you tie them like this. And I wouldn't have had to actually tie that material at the front like that. I could have also tied it back on the hook shank some here. Done exactly the same thing. Tied the fly behind that hackle after I tied the hackle in. Sweep it back, tie it how I wanted, and then put a head or something on it ahead of that hackle. Exactly the same technique, but it works really, really well, and it lets you use, you know, all of your feathers rather than just the ones that are suitably sized for the flies you're tying. As always, thanks for watching, and if you find this video helpful or any of my other content helpful, I would appreciate it if you'd throw a coin in the Buy Me a Coffee jar, link at the bottom there. It's basically a tip jar. See you next week.